Are imaginary friends always imaginary? This is a question that I have had for so many years. Children have a much easier time connecting and communing with spirits than most adults. And in some cases, when these children grow up, their imaginary friend seems a lot less like something that they invented and a lot more like a haunting that they experienced. As we're heading towards Samhain, I really want to highlight more spirit and cryptozoological encounters from my subscribers. And today's story, submitted by Callisto, brings up all of these questions for me. It is so unsettling, and I would love to know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. This is about how my friend's imaginary creature friend decided it didn't like me. This was when I was around 13 or 14 years old, during 2018, staying in a hostel or dorm in middle school. My friend, let's call her B for the purpose of this story, had confided in me of her imaginary friend. We're both from India, and this is slightly important. I admit, I was always amused by her stories about this friend, nodding along as she rambled about its strange behaviour. B always described its appearance as a tall, very thin, lanky creature, nearly 8 or 9 feet tall, with an animal skull head. The description matched that of how a Wendigo looks, but I had pushed that thought aside because I learned online that the origin of this creature is from North America. I simply thought it was B's creative imagination, but now, looking back, I probably should have noticed the alarm bells in my head. Something about it just felt off, but at the time, I pushed it aside. I think a few months after she told me about this friend, I started noticing some signs. It was small things at first. Scratches, nicks on my arms, my neck, and my back. I had a habit of scratching myself, so I didn't pay them much mind. But then one day, I was in the school courtyard, just sitting and reading quietly. I heard the sound of dry leaves crunching, and assumed it was my friend, so I didn't look up, only tilting my head in acknowledgement. I was, and still am, a very oblivious person, so I hadn't processed the eerie silence for a few long minutes, until I felt a soft brush against my back. I huffed and turned around to smack B in the shoulder, but then I noticed no one was there. The courtyard was empty, save for a few younger students far across the courtyard from me. Goosebumps immediately prickled all over my arms, and I went back to the dorm, spooked. This happened quite often after this moment. Waking up in the middle of the night to feel something stroking my head, or the feeling of something sharpish against my cheek, of a pressure sitting on my legs. It couldn't have been anyone else in the room. Our floor was so uneven that even shifting in bed made it creak loudly. And at times, when I'd feel as though someone was laying over my legs, it didn't feel human, or even like a ghost. The pressure felt almost hollow, if that makes sense, like a weighted blanket laying across. The pressure is there, but I can also sense how light it is. When I'd asked B if she'd seen her imaginary friend recently, she'd said no, and that she was glad, because in her words, her friend was getting more unsettling and creepy. She had long scratches on her back that she said were probably given to her by this friend. It was in a spot she couldn't reach because she had quite short arms. I got very worried for her and told her to go to a monastery when she went home for the holidays so that a monk could do some prayers for her. In India, or at least in the community where I'm from, this is a common thing to do, going to monks for prayers after unsettling experiences. At first, I hadn't thought B's friend was harmful, but I guess it got agitated when I was warning B about it. I say this because the scratches and phantom touches followed me out of school campus as well when I visited family. This had really started affecting my health because I wasn't getting enough sleep, and I always felt like I was drained of energy. I was constantly tired, but at the same time unable to sleep to rest. The times I did sleep, the few dreams I had were always unsettling. I had a dream that sort of confirmed my fear, as it was the first time where it touched me in a dream. And I'd like to quickly add that I barely dream, and the very rare times I do, the dreams are always weird and strange. Like pigs flying and leprechauns shitting sunlight type of weird. So dreaming in the first place was strange to me. In the dream, I was in a thick forest, branches cracking in the background, and my intuition was screaming at me to run. I knew it was a dream. I was fully aware it was a dream. I remember desperately trying to wake up, a sense of danger in the pit of my stomach. I remember hearing the sound of leaves crunching and a painful grip on my right wrist. Thankfully, that pain was what forced me to wake up. I had told my mother about this dream, and very reluctantly about the creature, though I made sure to leave out that it was B's imaginary friend. She had immediately whisked me to a monk. He had given me a traditional Buddhist amulet to keep nightmares away, and in general to just ask our deities to watch over me. It had worked, because after that, the scratching and hair stroking had ended, and I think even my friends started forgetting about the creature friend after she'd gotten home. My suspicion is that it was a hungry ghost. In Tibetan Buddhism, which is the primary religion where I'm from, I learned from the monk that they are both literal creatures and also serve as a metaphor. It is common to hear people say that one has entered the hungry ghost when one gives in to addiction. But my friend's description of the creature was far off from how hungry ghosts usually look. To this day, I'm still unsure of the real identity of the creature, and it still baffles me. This is one of the extremely few spirit interactions I've had, and one of the only intense ones I have ever experienced. That is so deeply unsettling. Like, even as I'm reading it, I just have chills all over my body. And stories like this are why I am consistently questioning the belief in imaginary friends. Of course, there are definitely going to be some imaginary friends that are just children creating characters and storylines that they can play out in their fantasies and in their just playtime imaginations. But then there are other stories that are very obviously not something that that child has created. And there is very much a sliding scale. There are some really, really benign experiences up to really, really terrifying and everything in between. But I think when we need to worry about these stories is when a child is saying that they are being harmed, when an imaginary friend is scaring a child, when a child no longer wants to engage with that imaginary friend, or when it is causing physical harm. Then it has reached a point where it is definitely no longer an imaginary friend. Because making up stories and characters is normal. Having a story and character be able to physically cause you harm in the real world is not normal for an imaginary friend. And this one very much to me seems like this spirit may have come to your friend, perhaps claimed to be an imaginary friend, when they were never imaginary at all. And the nightmare in all of this really cements to me that this spirit was way, way closer than you would expect a normal spirit to be able to be. So physical harm is bad enough, where they're able to physically scratch and touch. But the intensity of this dream, to the point where the pain that was experienced during the dream is what woke you up, means that that spirit was more likely than not in your environment whilst you were sleeping. And I know that sounds really, really scary now, but I'm really grateful that this has been resolved, so it shouldn't be a problem at all going forwards. But when we are asleep, we are at a point where we are in liminal space. And liminal space is a point in time where we are able to engage with spirits more readily, and they are able to engage with us more readily too. Which is why we often, when we're dealing with unwanted spirits, with demons and the like, you may well experience dreams. Now, these dreams could be positive dreams where a spirit, a guide, an ancestor shows you signs. It could also, in some cases with very negative spirits, lead to nightmares. And the fact that not only was physical contact being made in this in waking life, which already takes a massive amount of energy, to then experience such vivid nightmares that the pain from that nightmare is actively waking you up, means to me anyway that that spirit was very, very close. And obviously really, really annoyed that you were trying to separate them from your friend. Now, I do find it interesting here though how the encounters, like the physical harm, came after you were initially told about that spirit. And then it got worse when you then said to your friend, I think you should probably do something about this. To me anyway, just as somebody who is fascinated by stories and has heard a lot of them, this to me sounds like the spirit saw you as being a risk to their ability to maintain their encounter with your friend. You were confided in because they were feeling uncomfortable. And as soon as that happens, this weird stuff starts happening. Says to me that this was very much a way of getting you to stop. Like, I'm going to scare you to the point where you're not a problem anymore. I'm so glad, though, that you are feeling more comfortable again, that everything seems to have resolved itself. Now, I am not super well versed in Indian folklore, spirits, mythology. That's not really my point of knowledge. And so I would really love to know if any of my subscribers have any idea of what this could be, because when you hear that description, it does sound like spirits that I read about from North America. And so the fact that this might not be kind of throws me through the spin, because that description sounds so familiar to me. I would love to know if any of you who have knowledge on this topic would be able to give us some more information in the comment section, because I need to know more, and I'm sure other people would love to know more too. And with all of this, I'd love to say a massive thank you to Callisto for sharing their story with not only me, but also my subscribers. Stories like this can feel very isolating. They can make people feel very alone. And it's a really big thing to feel like you can share that with other people. So thank you so much for trusting me to share your story. If you also have a ghostly or cryptozoological encounter that you would like to share on the channel, it has to be real and you have to have experienced it or know what happened really close to the source. Do let me know. I have some links in the description box that you can follow if you would like to submit your own. With that being said, if you did enjoy this video, feel free to give it a like. If you do have any more information, comments, let me know what you think. Feel free to put them down in the comment section. And if you enjoy magical content or ghostly encounters, feel free to subscribe. I try to post videos every single week. And with that being said, I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're having an amazing spooky Samhain season, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, bye!